Bonjour, I'm Carson Morton, author of the novel Stealing Mona Lisa. On August 21st, 1911, someone strolled into the Louvre Museum and walked out with the world's most famous painting, Leonardo da Vinci's portrait of Mona Lisa, known to the French as La Joconde. My story, though based on facts, is a fictionalized account of the theft and its aftermath, and includes in its climax one of the greatest disasters that Paris has ever known. I'd like to take you on a sort of author's travelogue to some of the locations used in my book. Our first stop will be La Cour du Rohan, in the area known as Saint-Germain-des-Prés. This is the Boulevard Saint-Germain, and it's off this busy, bustling boulevard that we find the magical Cour du Rohan, a wonderfully cloistered world of its own. The prologue of Stealing Mona Lisa takes place in 1925, 14 years following the actual theft. An English reporter comes here to the Cour du Rohan to interview the mysterious and enigmatic Marquis de Valfierno. The courtyard serves as the location of Madame Charnot's boarding house, where Valfierno and his cohorts planned their audacious heist. The actual theft, of course, happened in the Louvre Museum itself, which will be our next destination. I'm standing in the main courtyard of the Louvre Museum. Of course, the Ayampe pyramid wasn't here in 1911, but pretty much everything else has remained unchanged for hundreds of years. That is, everything except for the location of the Mona Lisa. In 2005, for reasons of safety and crowd control, the Mona Lisa was moved here into the Salle des Etats. By the way, if you get tired of hearing, "I didn't realize it was so small," spoken in a dozen languages, just turn around and enjoy the expansive marriage at Cana adorning the rear wall. We are now in the Salon Carré, the original home of the Mona Lisa, which used to hang right behind me between a Correggio and a Titian. Now let's follow the trail of our thieves. The thieves climb these steps and turn right at the headless winged victory of Samothrace. As the museum closed on the night of August 20th, 1911, they entered a paint supply closet here in the Salle du Châtel and spent an uncomfortable and cramped night waiting for morning and their opportunity. The following morning, the museum was closed for cleaning. They emerged from the closet dressed as maintenance men, walked into the Salon Carré, lifted the Mona Lisa off the wall, and, on the pretext of taking it to the museum's photographers, carried it into the Grand Gallery. The thieves then turned right into the Salle de Sept Maîtres, entered this stairwell, and after a few mishaps and misadventures, carried the Mona Lisa out of the Louvre and into history. The characters in Stealing Mona Lisa enter Paris through the Gare d'Orsay, the main railway terminus, in 1911. Today it's better known as the Musée d'Orsay, home to the world's greatest collection of art from the Impressionism period. The train tracks used to be situated on the lower level. An electrically powered escalator would bring the passengers' baggage up to the main concourse. During the climax of Stealing Mona Lisa, the overflowing banks of the River Seine flood the tracks below. The most important part of the scheme to steal the Mona Lisa involves making 6 copies and selling them to 6 fabulously wealthy American robber barons, each one believing that only he will possess the original. To do this, the Marquis de Valfierno must find a brilliant and talented art forger. The only problem with this scheme is that Valfierno finds himself falling in love with Ellen Hart, the bird in a gilded cage wife of Joshua Hart, one of his most powerful, not to mention vindictive, customers. Not a good idea to mix business with pleasure. In 1911, the year the Mona Lisa was stolen, the iconic Eiffel Tower was only 22 years old. It was originally built for the Paris exhibition of 1889 and was only meant to be a temporary structure. Indeed, many people at the time considered it little more than an eyesore. Critics at the time referred to the tower as that odious column of bolted metal, that giant and disgraceful skeleton, that hideous iron asparagus, that monstrous erection. Luckily for us, it outlived all its detractors. The French writer Guy de Maupassant hated it so much that he often ate his lunch in the restaurant at the tower's base. He said it was the only place in Paris where he could avoid seeing its distinctive profile. The backdrop for the climax of stealing Mona Lisa is the Great Paris Flood, La Inondation, of the early part of the 20th century. Swelled by weeks of rain, the Seine overflowed its banks, sending thousands of Parisians to higher ground. Historically, the water level of the Seine has been judged by the statue of a soldier, a zouave, adorning a support pillar of the Pont d'Alma. Normally, his feet stand just above the water level. At times of seasonal high water, the surface of the river rises above his toes. At times of unusually high water, it reaches his ankles. During the Great Paris Flood, the river rose above the level of the hand that rested on his hip, and didn't stop there. Much of the action in the climax of stealing Mona Lisa occurs here, beneath our feet, at the Saint-Michel metro station, close to the river. The Paris metro had opened in 1900, and being mostly underground, it was the scene of some of the worst flooding. On my first research trip to Paris, I was disappointed that I couldn't find anyone who knew anything about the Great Paris Flood, the setting of the climax of stealing Mona Lisa. In fact, I could find no trace at all. Then one day, I was on my way across the Ile de la Cité when I decided to visit the forbidding Conciergerie, a former royal palace and prison that became home to Marie Antoinette while she was awaiting her fateful encounter with Madame Guillotine. Then, as I was making my way out of the rather gloomy vaulted ground floor, more of a basement really, I happened to look up, and voila, there it was, the high point of the Paris flood, right above my head. You never know what you'll come across in Paris. I guess you just have to keep your eyes open. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this short visit to some of the locations in my novel, Stealing Mona Lisa. And I hope you enjoy the book. A bientôt.